Hi everyone, this is Nikki. I'm so happy to have you here today. This is the most adorable card, and we are going to talk today not only about how to make it, but just how to keep yourself more organized during your card making, especially with this many die cuts, ways that you can reduce your stress, keep up with things. I just got lots of tips and tricks for you, so let's get right into it. Okay, let's start with how I store my dies. I use these plastic pockets. Honeybee has some amazing plastic pockets that are really large. And then I usually cut a piece of magnet. So I get magnet sheets, which I'll show you in just a second. And I try to keep all the dies on this because that way they don't fall out in my pocket and I can see everything that I have right here. So we're starting with this original set, what is called Beach Bound. And we'll be using the add-on set for the holidays, which has all of these adorable dies. Now, Honeybee puts their dies on a sticky piece of paper, so you've got things that hold them down. But what I've noticed over time is that you probably need to move to a magnetic sheet because I tend to use mine so much that I use up all the stickiness. So you can easily transfer these, and let me just show you how easily it holds on a piece of magnetic sheet. I mean, it doesn't come off. It's so awesome. And you can cut that magnetic sheet to whatever size you want to use. But that's one way to do it. Another way that I've found that keeps me a little bit more organized is to look at the layering guide and go ahead and see what each die is for before I start cutting. Because let's face it, figuring out which die goes where is sometimes half the battle. I often come in with a pen and write what each is a part of, especially little pieces like this. This is Rudolph's nose, but it took me a second to figure that out. And that way I can also put the piece back together if I'm not going to put it on a magnetic sheet. I know where the dies fit, and they've got them placed so well. Next, if I'm using colored cardstock, I try to find everything that's going to possibly be that color and go ahead and die cut it at the same time. Now, here's where I can feel like you can get pretty stressed is you've got all of these items you're cutting out and you need to keep them organized so that you can find all the tiny pieces. You could use a tray. You could use simple coffee filters. I use these all the time because they're inexpensive and I can lay out quite a few of them. And then I can keep things together like pieces of the tree or just little small, like this one has ornaments for the tree. It has some bows, just whatever type of way makes it the easiest for you. The other way that works really well if you have an extra one of these is using a sticky mat. So let me show you. This mat is sticky. It's kind of like a Cricut mat, and I can take things that I've done. I know these have already been a little bit ink blended, but you'll see that I can just keep up with pieces and I can have them laid out so that I can grab them quickly and glue them together or add ink, anything that needs to be done. So with these red pieces, I'm putting all the little small pieces in a tray and I'm just holding, sometimes you lose the teeny little pieces. So just hold it over your tray, punch it out. And then especially these ornaments, you don't want to have to lose any of those. So I just pick them up off my magnetic sheet and then I punch all those little ones in this container. And then I've got all kinds of red items here for use. And one other tip, once you finish with your dies, immediately put them back in their space on your sticky sheet or on your magnet. So another decision you've got to make when you're doing die cut cards is, are you going to use cardstock? Are you going to use ink blending? Or are you going to use a combination of both? When you're feeling overwhelmed, just go with colored cardstock. It's easy. It gives a great look and it doesn't take as long as some of those other options. I also highly recommend this magnetic mat from the Anna Griffin Empress machine. I'm using the mini. This is my first couple of cards using it. I am super impressed. It is in the Honeybee store and it is amazing if you're looking for a Christmas present. An easy way to jazz up your cards is to grab some glitter paper, just different specialty paper. You can send all of these little specialty papers through the die cutting machine at the same time. I'm using a red glitter paper and I'm using this velvety paper for the antlers. It just gives it such a cute look. And last, I used some matte silver metallic paper to create the windows and the bumpers and some of the lights. This is an easy way to not have to color those in as well, and they look kind of like it's a real van. I just love it. So now I have my containers and I can go through and start building my little van. I love that Honeybee has kind of an impression in that bottom die. So you can use a layering guide if you want, but you can pretty much tell where everything is supposed to go just based on those little indentions in the paper. So let's do a quick build montage and then I'm going to talk to you about a way to keep your stress low with these die cut cards. And that's about how we're going to do the background. We've put so much work into this elaborate van and it's going to look so cute, but what do you do with the rest of the card? So using a tool with a wax tip like this, it's very easy to pick up these pieces. I like to lay mine out before I actually glue them down, so I decorated my little Christmas tree, and all that's left for my die cut pieces is to put that tree on top of this little van. So let's go into that background. Now, to me, I love the contrast of an ink blended background with crisp die cuts. I just think that really shows it off, and we're going to create a spotlight background. You will need your die cut kind of completed to make sure you know where on this piece of paper you're going to put it, because what I'm going to do is use a little bit of masking to create kind of a roadway, and then the rest of it is going to be a beautiful snowy sky, and it is so easy. Another way of making sure you're precise on your card, which just makes it look amazing, is to use a T-ruler. And when you're using a T-ruler with one of these sticky mats, I love that I can stick the T-ruler down so it stays in place. And then I can just add a little bit of masking tape right here, and I'm going to blend above it first. Okay, I'm going to use a few colors to do this background, even though I know all of it is blue, but I want to show you what effect it gives. If you take a very light color in the middle, which I'm using tumbled glass, and then you go out in a darkened way, it tends to make that center more like a spotlight, which I think is going to highlight our little van so nicely. Next, I'm using prize ribbon as the middle, and this just looks like a mess. I mean, it really does. But don't worry, you always can come back in and blend those edges a little bit, and that makes it not so drastic of a circle. But really, in pictures, this is going to look amazing, and when I blend over it, it's just going to look great. So I'm coming from the edge with chipped sapphire. I will add just a little bit of black soot around the edge as well, and that's just to create this gradient of color that brings your eye to the center of the card. So I use a smaller brush to bring that black soot in from the edge. And remember, also, you don't have to have perfect ink blending. Part of this card is going to be covered up by that huge die cut, and we're also going to do some white splatter on top of it, which is going to fix all kinds of mistakes if you're worried about your ink blending. I wouldn't let that stress you out. And then once you've got it the way you want it, you can just remove this masking tape and see how perfect that crisp line is. Just follow that line again, use the same piece of tape, and add black soot to the bottom. Now, probably before I took this masking tape off, it would have made sense to add my white splatter, but I also didn't want to have to wait for that to dry. I wanted to get the whole panel drying at the same time, so I'll just reuse that piece of tape to cover up the roadway when I do the white splatter. So once I'm done with this, I'm going to add the water, and I use this piece of plastic that was just left over from stamps, and then I'm going to spray just a little bit of water, dab it off, and that's on the roadway. I didn't want the snow to be on the roadway. Now I'm going to peel everything off and kind of use this same idea to do my white splatter. We'll use that same piece of plastic. It comes off of the sticky mat just fine. Let me show you the reveal after we pull this tape away. Look at how perfect that roadway looks. Now you could use the tape or this plastic to cover up this area down here where you don't want the white splatter, and then you can splatter on top. Now I'm using white acrylic paint with water, and then I'm just carefully splattering it over the panel to look like snow. If you ever over splatter, no big deal. Remember, a lot of this is going to be covered up by our little van, so just kind of start slow and see how many little snowflakes you want to add. Once your panel is dry, I actually used some white heat embossing and created the sentiment that's going to be below the van. It says, "Have yourself a merry little Christmas." Fits perfectly in that space, and it's from another Honeybee set. I will put that in the description. Then I got all of my tape ready, and with the Christmas tree, I did add a little bit of foam tape because it's on top of this vehicle, so it would be a little bit off if you didn't put some foam tape there to make everything even and lay flat. And then I'm going to put my van on here. You'll notice I've taped all the corners down of my piece of paper because I want it to stay I want this to not be off center. So a lot of times I will tape it down or add it to a sticky mat to make sure that I'm placing everything level. And having a grid mat like this does not hurt because you can see where the center of your card is. You can see that you've got it lined up level and square on the bottom. It just helps you with your placement. So in this video, we have talked about so many different ways to organize these die cut cards with all these little pieces. It can get a little bit overwhelming. I hope that I've given you some ideas that will help you not feel that sense of dread when you're going to cut out this many pieces, that it's exciting. You've got a good organized plan and you can make cards and have so much fun with these adorable die sets. Tell me your favorite thing about this card and which parts you're going to try out in the comments. Make sure you look in the description for all of the links to the products that I used today. I had so much fun with you here today. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.